After the recent PlayStation showcase, Sony dropped a bombshell. Not only did they have perpetual exclusive Spider-Man games on their system with the announcement of Spider-Man 2, but the same studio, Insomniac, were also in early development on another huge Marvel property, Wolverine. A lot of talk shifted to the fact PlayStation has not one but two Marvel characters exclusive to their system, while their most direct competitor Xbox has none that we know of. After the showcase, it was a sticking point that I continued to see. People were asking Xbox for a superhero game of their own, and with WB having its own game publishing label and studios, Disney seems very confident with licensing out, and I thought it would be fun to go through all of Xbox's first party as well as suspected second party studios to see which Marvel character could potentially match up with which studio. There has to be a few ground rules for this though. Obviously Spider-Man and Wolverine are off the cards, as well as other known games such as Guardians of the Galaxy and Midnight Suns. I thought about not doing any of the core Avengers such as Iron Man and Captain America, due to them being staples of the Avengers game, but since that game is pretty much dead in the water, and even so Spider-Man is showing up in this game and in his own, so characters like Iron Man are in both Midnight Suns and Avengers. I honestly believe that each and every one of these characters deserves a fully fledged AAA video game that takes the same love and care Insomniac did with Spider-Man and Miles Morales. While I think the vast majority of Marvel characters certainly fit well into the classic third-person action adventure, I wanted to see some of Xbox studios adapt to that, as well as other studios adapt a character into the type of games that they primarily make. I also decided not to include any sidekick or spin-off characters, as I see any potential Winter Soldier or Falcon game as a spin-off or sequel to Captain America, in the vein that Miles Morales was to Spider-Man. Starting with Xbox Game Studios and their most notable studio, the caretaker of Halo, we have 343 Industries. When thinking about 343, it's hard to separate them from Halo, but eventually I thought of the character of Nova. 343 can certainly make a game in the sci-fi roots exploring the lore of the Marvel Cosmic Universe through either Rick Ryder or Sam Alexander. Both Halo and Nova share the human exploring the cosmic frontier, and to see 343 step outside of their first-person shooter box with Nova would be very exciting. World's Edge isn't actually a studio. They oversee and caretake the Age of Empires IP, and thus it's just really too hard to contribute a character or IP to them. I was originally thinking about some sort of Marvel RTS, but with Midnight Suns coming out, I think it's just best that I skip this one. I, for a long time, have wanted to see what the Coalition, the masters of Unreal Engine, could do stepping outside their third-person shooter box. But sometimes, a match made in heaven needs to happen. And this is where I feel Punisher would be most at home. The caretakers of the franchise that propelled third-person shooters and their mechanics, while knowing they can craft a linear personal narrative, is exactly what Frank Castle, the Punisher, needs. Compulsion as a studio has a lot to prove, and with rumours of their next game being a third-person action adventure, I decided on Daredevil. As a very grounded character, I'd like to see Compulsion go all in on the very street-level, block-to-block aspect of Daredevil. It's a game where we can all immediately picture how this should come out. After the amazing Psychonauts 2, I feel Ant-Man and the Wasp would suit Double Fine perfectly. I'd picture shrinking down in Ant-Man to feel similar to entering someone's mind in Psychonauts. Having levels and platforming based on seeing things the size of an ant is something I think Double Fine would excel at, especially going with a cel-shaded comic booky art style, and the power of next-gen SSDs would help with instantaneous shrinking and growing. It's hard to place a game to a studio we haven't ever seen a game come out of, but for the initiative, I feel Captain Marvel would be a good pick. Just from the caliber of talent at that studio, Captain Marvel game would need a lot of work on how her abilities could be used in combat, exploration, and traversal, while crafting a personal story for Carol Danvers, and I feel the initiative would be up to this task. For an Exile, I gave them the X-Men. I think seeing the X-Men as an RPG would be an interesting take, and with the huge amount of characters and their own corner of the Marvel Universe, I feel it would give an Exile a lot of world building and character development to chew on with their RPG expertise. I see Mojang as a studio largely based on creating more family-friendly games for a younger demographic, and to lean into that, I settled on Young Avengers. It seems very likely that Marvel would be going down this route soon in the MCU, and having a game alongside that would be good. Exploring characters such as Iron Lad, Hulkling, Patriot, Wiccan, and Kate Bishop in game would be exciting for me. I picture this more in the vein of Minecraft dungeons, something fairly linear perhaps with replayable levels with different characters. For Ninja Theory, I feel the Scarlet Witch would be a good choice for them. With Hellblade, we've seen a strong female-led narrative dealing with mental health, with Ninja Theory very deep on this at the moment. I feel this suits Wanda Maximoff perfectly, as she often toes the line between hero and anti-hero, and even potentially villain. I'm also picturing some of their work on DMC as to how using her abilities in combat could be extremely interesting. I feel Obsidian, above all, are known for their strong writing and world building, which is exactly what I feel a Black Panther game would be perfect for. Having the whole of Wakanda, one of the most interesting and unique parts of the Marvel Universe, fully exploring and making lasting decisions as a king is something I would only trust Obsidian with. For Playground Games, we know their strength is creating beautiful open worlds, and when you need 9 of them, I think these are the people to do Thor. Creating 9 realms worth of worlds is something I think Playground are up to the task, as well as their work on Fable. While we haven't seen it yet, stepping over from British-centric fantasy to Norse mythology I feel would be a natural step. For a studio like Rare, with decades of pedigree, I feel the Runaways would be something a bit out of the box for Rare to run with. Working on different abilities for these kids and how they navigate this world where their parents are the villains. I think Turn 10, a studio completely dedicated to simulation racing, was hard to put down. But then, I thought about characters with a strong emphasis on vehicles, and immediately, it had to be Ghost Rider. Whether Johnny Blaze's bike or Robbie Reyes' car, we know Turn 10 would get the feeling of that down perfectly, but would have to step significantly out of their niche to deliver a game with strong narrative, level design, and combat that Ghost Rider demands. With a studio name, like Undead Labs, there's really only one way this can go. Marvel Zombies. I would personally see Marvel Zombies as less of a game and more of a potential event in State of Decay, similar to A Pirate's Life in Sea of Thieves recently. Having the zombies show up being Marvel characters with a potential story associated with it. Stepping away from Xbox's first party, when Insomniac made and completed their first Spider-Man game, they were not owned by Sony and were working on a purely second-party partnership. So here are some ideas from second parties Xbox had previously worked with, currently working with, or heavily suspected to be working with. IO Interactive is suspected to be working with Xbox on Project Dragon through a completely new team, but due to that studio's expertise with Hitman and now working on Bond, I feel Deadpool would be an interesting fit. We know they can do third-person gameplay, and would like to see them take on melee and shooting mechanics of Deadpool, but of course, nothing would be more important than getting the characterization and the humour. Iron Man is arguably Marvel's most popular character outside of Spider-Man, and for the studios that Xbox could work with to bring that to life, I feel Avalanche is a good fit. From their work on Just Cause, that high explosive, intense action they would bring to Iron Man game would be superb, with all the potential gameplay scenarios this character deserves. I would also like to see a deep, personal narrative on Tony Stark. Crytek's work on Rise made me think of Black Knight, and then immediately to Crysis, knowing Crytek could nail both the past and present aspects of Black Knight, while knowing they know how to do melee combat. I think this would be a very interesting game. A Plague Tale by Asobo is one of my favourite games, and thinking back to the Amicia-Hugo dynamic, I immediately wanted Asobo to do a Hawkeye with both Clint Barton and Kate Bishop. And the fact we see Amicia with a crossbow in the trailer to the sequel likely means they've been working on that type of gameplay, which could very well be adapted to Hawkeye. Of course, Moon did the incredible side-scrollers Ori, and I'd like to see their take on Miss Marvel. I think her abilities would be incredibly interesting for a side-scroller, and we know anything Moon touches, it will be fantastic anyway. Speaking of fantastic, we need someone for the Fantastic Four, and I'd like to see Bethesda Game Studios take this. Yes, we're up to Bethesda Softworks now. I feel Bethesda could do really interesting job with the world building and characters of the Fantastic Four. I also would like to see Bethesda make a party-based RPG, and this would be the perfect situation for that. It's hard to imagine id doing anything other than first-person shooters, but I think id's level design is some of the absolute best in the industry, and would love to see them pull the camera back and work on Blade. I think their demon designs could be very interesting to see translated to vampires, and I think them getting to work on melee combat would be very interesting as well. For ZeniMax Online, Eternals would be unique to see for an MMO, basically what the studio is made for. I feel Eternals have a lot of potential, whether leaning into the being on Earth for thousands of years aspect, or the fact that they are closely tied with the Celestials. There's a great historical game in here, and a great cosmic game. For Arcane, I feel Doctor Strange would be an interesting challenge for them. There's a lot of opportunities with his abilities and all the different dimensions to go through, as well as being the only character in the magic realm on this list. It's a bit out there for Arcane, but with their work on abilities in the past, I feel this would be a natural step up for them. I give Machine Games my favourite Avenger, Captain America. We already know they're pros at letting us take out alternate history Nazis, and now working on Indiana Jones, I suspect they're already working on the transition to third-person action adventure. I think a game set in World War II with Cap would be a perfect starting point that Machine is very clearly capable of. Tango is known for their horror games, and there isn't really many more characters scarier than the Hulk when he's angry. I think taking Hulk in the horror direction would be a really interesting dynamic I'd love to see, especially with the quality of this studio. Alpha Dog are known for their mobile presence, and while I don't think Marvel needs any help in that department, how about a game centered around Battleworld, as it includes pretty much all key characters, but with interesting and unique twists. Roundhouse is a brand new studio, but heavily made up of ex-Human Head developers. I think an interesting take for them would be Black Widow. Making a linear spy game with a lot of Marvel references and villains feels honestly, more than anything, a bit overdue. Well, there you go. There's what I'd pick for every Xbox studio if they were all to make a Marvel game. This list was a lot of fun to make, as honestly, more than anything, I want good quality superhero games, whether they're on Xbox, PlayStation, or third party. While this list was a lot of fun, more than anything, I'd like to see these teams make the games and characters they want to make games about. Thanks for watching. Let me know which studios and which Marvel characters you'd like to see show up in games in the comments. If you like this video, consider leaving a like. Cheers, and have a good one.